Hare Krishna, welcome to Thriving Bhakti. Bhadrasane here. Today I wanted to talk about someone I talked to on the weekend at a program, and she was a classic case of the overwhelmed and struggling Bhaktin or Bhakta. And so for those who are listening, those who are on the podcast, on the YouTube channel, um, this may be really, really useful because I want to see if you can relate to the thinking and the experience and the way this devotee is feeling because they're not where they want to be in their spiritual life or how they're situated materially and spiritually in terms of their balancing of life. So this is really key. So we want to focus on how she's feeling, and I want you to resonate with the kind of thoughts she's been having, how she's feeling stuck, how she's got all these sort of major overwhelming issues, and you can see how there's this quiet suffering behind it all. It's like, oh, and if you're on this call, it may not be now, but at some point or some way, to some degree, I am sure, like hundreds of thousands of devotees out there, they're experiencing this, and that often they don't know the way out. And this is what we're going to learn today: how to find the way out. And the way out is actually relatively easy. But if you don't know the way out, it's like a maze. And you feel like you're bouncing around, right? How many of you, with your reading, your chanting, you're getting up in the morning, your morning programs, your relationship with your spouse, your balance between earning money and being a devotee, getting too sucked up in work, you've got kids, now you don't have enough money, you're stressing about that. But at the same time, you come home and you don't have enough time with your children because you've got all your rounds to do. So let's talk about one of these, what I call thriving and struggling Bhaktas, overwhelmed and struggling Bhaktas today. So I was at the program and I was talking to her, and she's lives a little bit out of town from where I live here in New Zealand. And I said, "How's things going?" "Oh, I'm fine, Prabhu. It's all good," and that was all good. We got chatting and lots of positive things. And she was at that time chasing after her child, who's 2, 3 years old, something like that. And I could see, within her voice, there was just so much going on. It's a struggle, especially it is when you have kids. And I think 90% of Hare Krishnas have children. So this is really key for you out there right now, or may have been through this phase. And I said, "How's it going?" And we got chatting, and I started to hear about problems, issues. "Oh, I'm just trying my best. I'm just, of course, it was very hard to verbalize when you're quietly suffering on your own, even in a relationship, and it's been going on and on for months and years, that you haven't really got to where you want with your spiritual habits and your spiritual life and balance. You can tell it's very hard to actually even voice it. Yeah, it's a very, what I call, invisible suffering that devotees are going through. So it was like, yeah, this is happening, and we had a house, and then the mortgage came up, and now the mortgage rates have doubled, and now we're both working. I'm on part time, and we're struggling to make payments, and and she started to list these real problems, and I totally sympathetic and empathetic to these situations. And I said, "So, what are you doing your rounds? Is that going?" "Oh, I'm just yeah, I'm getting them done, and I'm on the clicker." When devotees are struggling, when they got the clicker out, right? And they're walking around, click, 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 and talking, and click, click, click. So you see, it's a struggle. This is going on for many, many devotees. So when I said to her, I said, "So what? So what? What's the solution?" "Oh, I don't know. I just, this is," and she just kept focusing on all these different issues. So here's number one. Now, first of all, before I go into the number one thing to address, um, can any of you relate to this devotee? It may be slightly different, but is the story the same? You have so much going on. You wish that you could be somewhere different. You wish your circumstances could change. You're waiting for this moment or time in your life where everything's just going to synchronize, and all the stars are going to align, and everything's going to work out, and you're going to have perfect sadhana, and you're going to have time for your children. You're going to, but the material world doesn't work like that. So what's the first thing I said to this Mataji? I said, well, you're doing a lot of thinking about the problems, and and you've expressed your problems really well and in a lot of detail, and it sounds to me that you've been thinking about them a lot. And she said, "Yeah, I just can't stop thinking about it." And I said, "Wow, you're a real expert at the problems." And she said, "Yeah, I suppose I am." I said, "Yeah, I mean, I could stand here for an hour and I'm sure you could go into a lot more detail. She said, yeah, you don't understand. And I wasn't saying it. I was just inquisitive, and actually I was feeling, because I've been in these situations and it happens regularly. I said, can I offer a suggestion? She said, what? I said, have you ever thought of changing the way you think about it? This is number one, key. This is what we address in Thriving Bhakti. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, the brain works in a certain way, and the more you focus on the problem, you become very expert at the problem. In fact, you see more in the problem than probably really is, and then you see other problems that are connected to that problem, and the brain just gives you more of what you're looking for. In neuroscience, this is known. In psychology, this is known. The more you focus on something. So I didn't say this next bit to her, but as devotees, we are chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita. I just wonder how many of us have really taken on board, and I questioned myself till recently, do I actually realize I'm not the body, I'm not the mind? Are we actually off that platform yet? The bodily platform? Because that's the beginning. Meaning, why am I identifying with all these things in my mind and thoughts? And even in the third wave psychology amongst non-devotees, they have successful programs helping non-devotees understand they're not their thoughts, they're not their mind. Serious practitioners who actually put into practice CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy or these new third wave psychologies that actually get you to get your mind or your negative thinking or that anxiety amygdala part of the brain, they actually get you to create a character in your mind and talk to it. Literally, they're telling non-devotees to talk to their minds because they're not the mind, and it distances them and disassociates them from the suffering. It doesn't get rid of the feelings and stuff, but it doesn't feed into it anymore. And this is how you get rid of anxiety and OCD and all these kinds of negative thinking and intrusive thoughts. But you have to practice it daily, cultivate it. A lot of people don't do it enough, and they don't practice it. It's a meditation. So when we look at our acharyas and our scriptures, we've got all these songs. The Manashiksha, for instance, is songs to the mind. It's talking to the mind. But as devotees, are we really seeing our mind like that? It's just, okay, you're doing your thing again, or okay, you're going to moan, you're going to bring up this negative. I'm not taking it seriously. It's one of the practices we do in the DARE method, which is an anti-anxiety program. I recommend anyone. DARE method, DARE is an acronym. It's one of the most successful anti-anxiety, intrusive thoughts kind of programs out there. You actually imagine the mind is, or the amygdala, or that negative part of the brain is a person, and you sit down and or even though it's raging and it's creating anxiety and negative thinking, you just say, hey, cool, let's have a cup of tea. I just pour them a cup of tea, and you imagine this in your mind, and it just doesn't feed in. It starts to bring out, it takes away the fuel and the food of all these anxiety and these intrusive thoughts, and you realize it's just got nothing to do with me. It's just normal to have intrusive thoughts. It's just that when you're anxious, you just hear them and focus on them more. But we have intrusive thoughts all the time, thousands of them daily. So talking to the mind. So I coming back to the example of this Mataji, who's like yourself. Can you relate? Overwhelmed, feeling stuck, circumstances. I need to change this. She's just taking her mind so seriously. It's like, have you ever just step back and say, hey, mind, this is not working. I mean, the more I focus on all this stuff, the more I get, and it's not actually helping me. I'm not going to take it seriously anymore. But then you need the positive, right? So what can I focus the mind on? Well, how about this? Remember the thinking change. This is key. Why don't you have a growth mindset? Move away from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, meaning to a solution-orientated mindset. Redirect the brain, the algorithms. Just tell the computer, the brain, the mind, okay, this isn't helpful. Focusing on it. I'm taking it seriously. I'm just buying into it. Why don't I just take that energy and put it into what's the solution here? What can I change? Let's ask the right questions. Start asking inquisitive, intelligent questions to your brain and direct it. Like our acharyas say, oh mind, when they talk to the mind, when will that day come where you focus on the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya without interruption? When will I see the Lord Govinda? The mind, they're always talking to the mind and just directing it towards the positive. So we can do that with our brain, with our mind. And the amygdala, the fear part of the brain, or the negative part of the mind, that is always taking us down unproductive routes. Because what happens is if you start asking good questions, you start building hope, confidence. You see, there is something I can do. So what are good questions? What can I control? What is in my control that I can change? Let me just write one thing down. I'm sure if you just get a pen and paper, okay, maybe I can change the way I'm managing my time. Maybe if I stop focusing on the negative, I'll have more energy and I'll be able to do more. Maybe my capacity to do more is because I'm focusing on the wrong things. These are great questions to ask. So I hope you're noting them down, those who are struggling out there. What can you control? Because most of the time, you can't necessarily change the circumstances. Most of them we can't. You can't, chuck your kid away. You can't change your husband. Your working hours might not be changed, but those things maybe can be changed. But what you can change is at least how you're thinking and your attitude. Your attitude you can change. Right back to Viktor Frankl in the concentration camps. He showed that those who survived, those who did not, was really just based on the attitude and what they were focusing on. He was focusing on leaving and becoming a very innovative speaker on psychology, and imagined he had audiences he'd be speaking to. He focused on the future. He focused on positive, and he got out, and those that didn't died in the concentration camp. I mean, it was a bit more complicated than that, but that was the rough summary of the attitude. He could only control his attitude in that concentration camp. Everything was outside his control. But that gave him the capacity, the emotional resilience to survive that time, and then to lead a very amazing, productive life helping people in psychology with his psychological knowledge. So could you do that in your situation? You're not in concentration camps. Unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, we are, we pray for those, but we're not in like Ukraine right now, where it is life and death, and you really have to get your thinking right to survive those things. But in your situation right now with the struggles and circumstances you have, do you think it's possible you could think up a solution that could focus on things you can control, adjustments you can make? Because your energy will change straight away. So what can you control? Well, you can control your capacity and skills, right? Well, I don't seem to be able to get things in order. Well, why not try to gradually get better and learn about managing time, managing your day? Here's a good one. I'm not sure many devotees do this, but I hope you do. You need to do a budget. Because if you don't know where your money is going, it's going somewhere. It's draining out. $5 here, $5 there, $5 on that, this and this and that. And eventually at the end of the month, you spent $200 and you get to the end, and that $200 you could have been saving for your end of year retreats or your holidays or investments or savings. It's all gone. So having a budget, your yearly, every month, at least once a month, you have to do a budget on everything, from every penny you're spending. The little things you buy here, they're the small things that drain. Your petrol, your food, your bills, your power, your yearly costs on your car, your insurance, your subscriptions, all those little things, your online Apple subscriptions accounts, your Google, your cloud subscriptions, everything. Put it on a piece of paper or in an Excel sheet, and then all your income, and then see what's left at the end of the week. You'll be surprised. And then what you can do is you can realize, wow, I'm wasting money. I'm doing I was talking to a non-devotee the other day. I was having with a budget, $60 a week on coffee. That's $240 a month. That's nearly $3,000 a year just on the coffee. What about his lunch? Little snacks here and there. This subscription that he doesn't need, game apps and stuff. Because at the end of each week, after all his income, he only had $90 left. Now he has over $200 a week just by changing small little things that are draining. So allow it to take that with time. Budget time. Do a time budget. Yeah, write down. When you wake up, you go to bed, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, weekend. Where's all your time going? Can you control that? Can you sit down and do that no matter what your circumstances? Oh, I'm spending a lot of time I'm spending half an hour in the shower. Maybe just have a 5-minute shower. That's 15 minutes. Huh? Maybe I spend a lot of time on social media. I'm checking this, checking that. Maybe you look at your time budget. What are you doing with your time? Because it's draining somewhere. And those 5-minute here, 10-minute there is all potential reading time, or time you could attribute to growing yourself in some area that's going to help you. The extra hour could be putting time into learning about time management and skill set. See, growing your capacity, doing those things are there. As we get older, growing our capacity is important because life doesn't get easier, it gets harder. So hopefully you're getting a bit of hope and a bit of sense of you want to solve your problems by changing the way you see the problem. That's changing your thinking. Right? And the purpose of these podcasts, of course, there's other ingredients involved, but this is essential, is just to start with the thinking. There's a great book out there by Carol Dweck called Mindset, How to Move from a Fixed to a Growth Mindset. Highly recommend. Read a couple of pages a day. That will be conducive and favorable for your Krishna consciousness if right now you're just thinking, you're just focusing on problems. Doesn't mean you're not feeling them and hearing them, but you just put them over here and you just focus the brain on the right thing. So redirecting the brain towards solution. This is what successful people do. It's not that they're unique. It's just that they think differently. Right? And I confess, I was a pretty fixed negative mindset for most of my life, especially my 20s, early 30s. So like that lady was explaining, focusing on the problem. So I said to her, that Mataji, I said, just what can you control? Can you change this? Why don't you just change the way you think? And she was like, immediately her face changed, her posture changed. I never thought like that. Immediately she had more energy. Her brain was open up to new ideas, new avenues, new ways of seeing things. Possibilities started to open up just by that shift of consciousness and thinking. So that's the purpose of the Thriving Bhakti program. These podcasts is just to give you that open and then apply these things. Of course, if you leave the podcast, this video or whatever, and you go out there on your own, it's quite hard because you go back to the same environment, the same habits, the same people. You tend to default back to the same thinking. So you've got to top up every day. You've got to hear this podcast every day. You've got to really help change those algorithms in the brain. So you can, that's why we listen to Krishna consciousness every day, because we wear down. We go back to our old habits, and Maya generally just defaults us back to ignorance, avidya, right? The avidya potency. So it's the same with everything, even with our material skill sets and thinking that are favorable for our Krishna consciousness. If we can get our management and our time back and be less victim mode, then we're going to have more sadhana. So that material fix and mindset shifts us to better sadhana, which lifts us up. But if we've got such poor thinking that we're not really getting into our sadhana, our spiritual life, we need to fix here first, because the mind's broken. So that's why I have the Thriving Bhakti program, because within the program, simple, no course, no studying, no major things to do other than a little bit of accountability, some daily habits, finding out what you want to achieve, getting some association where you get hope and belief. You see people succeeding. You see people applying themselves to these ingredients: accountability, goal setting, and mindset. These three ingredients are required. So that's why, if you really want to fast track, like everyone in the program, not one person exempt, no exceptions, within 30 to 90 days, they have shifted immediately. A little bit, maybe practically, but their thinking has changed. The way they carry themselves, the hope that they have, and the changes they start to see within 90 days are absolutely incredible, because we fixed the problem. We fixed the problem. It's not a many problem. All of these issues that you have, honestly, you're striving and you're thriving and you're struggling and overwhelmed bhaktas and bhaktins out there. The problem is not all those problems you're thinking about. Oh, it's this and it's that, and my husband and this and the time and the kids, and I can't do that. That is not the problem. The problem is the thinking. And as soon as you address the thinking, things will begin to change. Is it overnight? No, it's gradual. But in 90 days, you can see hope. You can see changes in people's habits, the way they're managing things. They're actually taking responsibility for the situation rather than complaining and moaning. Why does it work? As I just said, we solve the problem, which is the thinking. And we have an environment where we can keep the faith and hope up. Just like as a devotee, you need association of devotees. You can't do it on your own. It's very hard, very rare for a devotee to make it on their own. That's why we have simple association, accountability, a coaching call every couple of couple of weeks to get together, set our goals, inspire, and then we get back out there and take responsibility to make things happen. And that's why the transformation is so quick in the Thriving Bhakti program. And that's why it works, because we address the problem. So I hope it's been really useful. So think about that struggling Bhakti. Can you relate to her? Mortgage payments, more money to worry about, young child, both having to work, just trying to get my rounds in, worrying. These are real things. And don't worry, I worry about lots of things too. But I have learned to keep my focus on my thinking and making sure it's always directing it towards solutions, not buying into those, just focusing on problems. And I've learned to move forward so I can manage my life better and help others manage their better, so we can have better sadhana, to hear and chant about Krishna more, to feel like we're moving forward towards where we want to be as a devotee. We want to be back chanting our 16 rounds with attention. We want to have an hour's reading every day. We want to be able to have time for our children, because there are a lot of parents, and maybe you're listening right now, how many parents out there, yeah, you're doing your rounds, you're doing your sadhana, and you're going to work, but you have no time for the kids. So how are you going to solve that? You need to change the way you think, and the way you think will come up with solutions, and you execute action plans and build yourself so you can have that time and tweak things. So I hope that's been really useful. I hope it's been relatable, and my heart goes out to every struggling Bhakta out there. And these podcasts, and there are other ones on here that go into more detail into other areas, particularly association, because as I've said before, when you don't have belief that you can get out of the situation, and that's what I saw with this devotee, and I see this regularly, when you're not where you want to be, and now you're no longer even talking about it, even to yourself, so you avoid thinking about the problem. That's the real double problem. You're invisibly suffering, and you're not even willing to talk about it to yourself. You're just resigned. It's just the way it is. There's no hope at some point. So if you're one of those devotees out there, or been there, or feel like you're heading there, so association, having today, like I'm breathing belief into you. If you don't have belief, you need to go to someone who can breathe belief into you, give you hope. It's only hopeless when you don't have people to breathe hope into you. And then when you see there's hope, then activity will happen. So that's what these podcasts are about, to give you some association and some hope that it's not all doom and gloom. There is a way out, but the way out is a thinking change rather than a practical change in the beginning. All right. Hare Krishna. Please subscribe. Please share. If you subscribe to this YouTube channel, or share the podcast, make a comment. It'd be nice to know if it's had any positive effects on you, anything that stood out for you, that was new, you found useful. It'd be really good to have some feedback. As imperfect as my podcasts are, as I am, I'm just trying to do my little bit of service to help devotees like myself who to move forward and to not be overwhelmed and struggling, to start become thriving again, to start to feel they're growing and moving towards where they want to be as devotees. All right. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.